Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Southern welcome to the magnificent author of French Women for All Seasons, Mireille Guiliano.
Bonsoir. And merci, Julie. I thought this was going to go on and telling my life since birth. A few things. First, for Caroline, because we usually, when we have readings, we have a drawing for a bottle of Clicquot. And to save time tonight, I thought, well, whoever wins the lesson might need some help. You know, to learn French, you need two things. Either a French lover, or champagne, or both. So, I will send you a bottle of Clicquot. Also, Atlanta and the South is very dear to me because as we all have dreams in life. And when I was a child, I wanted to be a writer, but I wanted to be a Southern writer because they're the best. Well, I never made it, but so it goes. I've had a good life, no complaints. And Atlanta is, Georgia actually, is very, very dear to me. And this wasn't planned, but if some of you have read French Women for All Seasons, I won't read it tonight because it's a long story, but I encourage you to read and to make that dish called GGG, Georgia Gouda Gougère. And for those of you who are cook, you know that gougère is a wonderful little thing that goes extremely well with champagne, that in any good French home you will be served the gougère. And I gave you that recipe of that Georgia gougère. And when you read it, you can laugh at me. It's okay because it shows how stupid I was. This being said, I'm delighted to be here. I always love to come to the South and Atlanta in particular. I have many friends here. And I would like to read a few passages from the book, but first tell you that this song, La Vie en Rose, is of course to any French woman a great love song. And I have tears in my eyes every time I hear it. But when I launched French Women Don't Get Fat, the first event was actually not planned by us. It was American Express Platinum Card, which did a very fancy, expensive meal. I don't know, they charged, hundreds of dollars, I think $600 to have a meal with 6 Veuve Clicquot champagne, a copy of the book, and me to try to entertain people to this great restaurant in New York called Per Se, which is the New York of the American French Laundry in Napa, which was impossible to get seats in. And of course, the 80 people who called first, it was booked in about 2 hours. And we had a great evening, and between course, I had to say a few words about the book. And when we got to Rosé, the pink champagne, I said, oh, you're going to see La Vie en Rose. And they said, why don't you sing it? And I think my husband will never forgive me because I'm not a singer, but I love to sing. And maybe I had a few too many drops of champagne. But I did sing La Vie en Rose. Anyway. I actually like to start the French Women for All Season with a little reading from a chapter called J'ai oublié de vous dire. I forget to tell you. J'ai oublié de vous dire is an expression of my mother that I remember from a very young age. It seems she was always forgetting to tell me something important she had remembered only after I had left the room or hung up the phone. For instance, oh, and I forgot to tell you, if you don't beat your egg whites to firm peaks, your soufflé will collapse. Before my first book was launched in France, a Parisian friend had a dinner party with French ladies, some of whom had read the English version, eager to know what beans I had spilled. One of them, Michelle, who hadn't read a word, pressed me to declare what I had written. But before I could say anything, Claudette, another guest, said with mischievous nonchalance, "Oh, she's told them absolutely everything about how we eat without getting fat." I laughed. I was a bit uneasy to see Michelle getting quite énervée, that's agitated. Finally, she said, "But how dare you give away our secrets to the world?" I am not making this up. And it wasn't totally an isolated incident in the company of French women. "We are all in this together," I said. "I was only trying to help a few troubled souls." Nothing would calm her down until I muttered, "Don't worry, j'ai oublié de leur dire. I haven't given away all our secrets." I didn't, however, take a vow of silence. Now, of course, I am in deep trouble because a few months ago, the French publisher bought the rights to publish the second book, and it's coming out in April, and I think Claudette might want to kill me. Anyway, we are strange people. And talking about strange, we eat strange things, as you know. And a couple of foods that you may have tried or may not have tried, but I want to read you a little passage called, from a chapter called "The French Eat What?" When I was an exchange student outside Boston, some of my classmates and their parents called me Frenchie. It was a lot easier to remember and pronounce that Mireille. And as they said it with affection, I was fine with it. Sometimes, though, I was also referred to as Froggy, or our frog friend Mireille. It seemed a little bizarre, and it honestly took me another 20 years before I made the connection. Other people call the French frogs because, well, we eat frogs, a habit that seems mostly alien and to some Americans almost beyond belief. I can just imagine an earlier era when this custom became common knowledge in America, the GIs coming back from World War II saying, "And they eat frogs." Et voilà, dis-moi ce que tu manges, et je te dirai ce que tu es. Tell me what you eat, and I will tell you what you are. Brillat-Savarin, the great French gastronome, was right about most things. Well, we do eat frogs. I do love to eat frogs. We eat only the legs. And so do a lot of French people. They are delicious, simply sauté in oil, butter, garlic, and a lot of parsley. And we also eat snails and fattened goose livers and pigeons and rabbits and sorrel and dandelions, plus a lot more delicious creatures, animal body parts, and plants. Every culture and cuisine has its signifiers. I remember when I was an exchange student, and the corn was in season, I was served these two strange little things on a dish. And I think my eyes were ready to pop out, and my Boston family looked at me and they said, "Do you like that?" And I said, "I've never eaten that. We give this to animal." I tasted it, it was delicious, and now every French friend who comes and visits me in New York, when corn is in season, we have corn. Delicious, and they all love it. Now, talking about loving food, how many of you love chocolate? Oh, come on, you're not all raising your hands. Yeah, good. Chocolate, well, as you know, the French women cannot live without chocolate. And in the first story, I had a chapter about bread and chocolat, pain et chocolat. And so many of my readers wanted more recipes that, of course, I was pleased since I have tons of recipes for my family because my mother was probably the greatest chocolate freak in the world. I gave you some more, and I told you, and I'm telling you also a few stories. And I want to read you one because, again, it shows my naivety, maybe. My friend Ségolène, the young one, not the Ségolène Royal, recently told me that 17 million French people eat chocolate every day, and she's one of them, and I'm one of them. But sometimes one makes mistakes, And here's an event that happened to me some years ago. When I invite people for dinner at home, I usually make 2 desserts, and one has to be chocolate. At the beginning of my married life, we often had dinner for 6 because that's all we could fit in our tiny Greenwich Village apartment in Manhattan. One time we had invited some of Edward's college friends, whom I barely knew, and as usual, the last course included chocolate. In this case, a flourless chocolate cake, the recipe, by the way, is in the book, and it is delicious, served with a bit of whipped cream. I served a small piece of each to each of our guests and offered no seconds because it was the end of a rather long and elaborate dinner. As the last couple was leaving later in the evening, I noticed Edward's buddy, John, eyeing, actually more nearly devouring with his eyes, the remaining half of the chocolate cake, which was resting on the kitchen counter. We were leaving for Europe the following night, so I offered to let him and his wife take it home for the weekend. The next morning, John phoned to thank us for dinner, and he said, especially for the most incredible chocolate cake, which he had eaten on the way home. An hour's drive outside the city. He couldn't remember, he said, eating anything so good. What could I say? I did feel a bit of guilt, having led him into temptation. But the lesson was clear. Next time, I would remember that friends, don't let friends who are not French women drive with half a chocolate cake. And now, of course, I have to tell you a few words about champagne because it's an essential part of the pleasures of life. And it's an essential part of any French woman's life because we love champagne. As you know, if you've gone to France, and I'm sure many here have been there, we don't drink so much hard liquor. We like a glass of champagne because it's a magic wine. It's the wine of celebration, and for us, every day is a celebration. So it's a wine of romance. It's a wine of love. But people forget sometimes that champagne has amazing benefits. Now, you've all heard about the French paradox, and you know now that wine is good for you. Why? Because it has nutrients, it has minerals. Champagne has potassium, manganese, calcium, all that's good for us. It also is a mild diuretic, like the leeks, which is a very important vegetable in French nutrition. But people often wonder, you know, when you go to a party and champagne is served, have you noticed that people get into a bubbly mood? You know. Do you know why? Huh? No, well, the bubbles are part of course, the romance and the magic of champagne because, you know, it's the only wine with bubbles in it, and in a good champagne, they dance at you, and they're beautiful, and it's a very sensual drink, but that's not the reason. The reason is that champagne is the only drink that has natural traces of lithium in it. Now, wait. It won't cure depression, but it will lift your spirits. So, cheer when you have that French lesson and you drink the champagne, think about it. Thank you. And I would like to finish by reading you a few short passages about the last chapter of the book, which is ironically called A French Lesson. That comes, of course, from my background as a linguist. And I do think that knowing a few words help. It occurred to me early this year when I was in China. Unfortunately, I don't know a word of Chinese. I'd actually never been there. And the young Chinese who took care of me spoke beautiful English, so I had no problem communicating. But after a week, I realized how much I had missed from not knowing a few words. It's really a great part of the culture. So the last chapter is called À bientôt, a little French lesson. And I would like to start with a word that you all know called bonjour. A French woman's first word to anyone, be they stranger or friend, is usually bonjour. Good day. The salutation is at the heart of French culture and etiquette. And if you listen, the emphasis is almost always on the good side. Bonjour. If you are the 68th person of the day walking into a small shop, you will be greeted with bonjour, as were the previous 67, and as will be the next 68 who follow. It is an ingrained social ritual, and you must return the store's clerk's bonjour before anything else, such as asking a question. In New York, complete sentences, let alone verbal niceties, can seem a waste of time to most. In France, where the relation to time is different from America, not to observe those customs is considered rude. You have a much better chance of being treated nicely if you say bonjour to everyone you meet. If it's evening, it's bonsoir, good evening. Only French use the word salut for hi or bye. The farewell matters, too. When you leave a store, don't be surprised if the clerk says goodbye, even if she or he is occupied with another customer. You should not neglect to say au revoir, goodbye. Again, we see each other again, time again. And always merci. Among friends, we also say à bientôt, see you soon. These are little pleasant expressions that go a long way in France to help people connect in a friendly and effective manner. And I want to close by saying, since Southern people not only has great writers, but has great cooks, because you love to eat, that eating for us, of course, is all about pleasure. It's not only, we sit at the table not only to eat and drink, we like that, but it is a place to connect, and it is a place, and it's something that is important to remind people of all over the world, in the developed countries where I went for the book, because we are all into the 21st century trap of multitasking and running and rushing and eating on autopilot, eating fast and eating more and gaining weight. So eating at the table is a time to slow down, to also to converse, to teach our children the art of conversation, but also to communicate with your family, your guests, your friends, and most of all, to have good laughs. So I hope and I wish you lots of wonderful dinners with more cooking in your life, and a little wine with it will go a long way. Thank you. I'll be glad to take some questions. Yes.
Well, at the end, you talked about how everyone says thank you, hello, goodbye, but there's also the reputation of French being kind of snooty. How does that mix?
The French are snooty? Oh, you see? It's like the French journalist who said that you can't eat well in America, and then when she didn't realize that I lived in America, and when I said, well, where have you been lately? And she said, oh, I've never been there. So you've never been there, and you know the French are snooty. No, it's okay. Yes, you're absolutely correct. There are snooty French people. Yes. It's a good question. Our question for those who didn't hear it was, we talk about all these little words, but how do you deal with snooty French people? Well, how do you deal with snooty people anywhere? They exist in New York, in Rome, in London. It just, there's some people, for some reason, who don't know how to be nice. So you deal with them by even being nicer, and usually it works. Yes.
And I realized I said that a lot.
Yes.
So no one was ever rude to me. It was like,
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, you know, like you don't interrupt, like here we used to just interrupt. No, you know, if the customer is talking with the butcher for 20 minutes, giving her a recipe of the rabbit, and you're behind, you just have to wait. You can't be snooty. Other questions? Yes. How often do I eat the magical leek soup? It's actually not a soup, it's a broth, because it's a detox. And it's a marvelous way for end of the winter, after, you know, vacation if I splurge too much, or after Christmas in France just 2 weeks ago. I had my day of leek broth. It was great. And, you know, especially for us, because we have Christmas, then we have New Year's Eve, and January 6th, we have Epiphany, the Kings with the galette. So between January 1st and 6th, you've got to do a day of leek broth. But it's not something you do, you know, once a week or once a month. It's because it is, and when you do it, you don't have, you know, strong activities because, but you're not dieting. You see, you're basically having a vegetarian day because you drink the broth every half hour. And then for meals, you have the leeks, as leeks vinaigrette, which you have in any French bistro. You can add a little lemon juice, some parsley, some olive oil, and so you eat the vegetables. And they're very good for you. I strongly recommend it, and I have about 6 new recipes in the book. Yes?
How long did it take the company to become successful in order to become American
How long did it take my company? Well, first, I wish it was my company, but it's not. It was Madame Clicquot's company in the 18th century. And actually, she was the first businesswoman of the modern era because she had never worked. She didn't know anything about wine, but her husband died when they were newlyweds, and she decided to pursue his dream. And his dream, he was a banker, but he loved wine. And he wanted to be all over the world. And when we opened the U.S. subsidiary, the top market for Veuve Clicquot was actually Italy for many, many years. You know, my Italian friends always said, we ship away the sparkling wine, we drink the real stuff. In the U.S., we were very weak, although we have been there since 1786. We have records. First bottles were shipped to Philadelphia. But when we started the company, the reason we started a subsidiary here was that the luxury tax had been put in South America. And so all of a sudden, you know, price of wine tripled, quadrupled. So we lose a lot of market share. And so we looked at America and we decided that the only way to do it was to open a little subsidiary. And we started with 3 people. And today we have over 100 all over the country, and the U.S. has become #1 market for Veuve Clicquot, and no one else can beat us now. We're so far in advance, and every year we get, you know, if some country has economical problems and they don't sell what is allocated to them, we get it because we don't have enough. You know, it's a problem of supply and demand. We actually can't grow indefinitely. You know, it's not like perfume or bags or shoes. You can't just, you have what you have from one vintage, and then you distribute it across the world. Yes?
Are there any plans for Clicquot to give the award in the United States like they do in other countries?
Yeah, no, the businesswoman, we have an award called the Businesswoman of the Year, and actually we tried it the first 2 years. But this country, there are so many businesswomen, and you know, if the winner was in Los Angeles, the Chicago press or the New York press didn't care. So it was a lot of effort, and it didn't make much sense. And a few countries like that don't. Italy doesn't have it either. But many small countries have it because for them it's a big event. And even in France, when unfortunately we still don't have many businesswomen, so it's important to honor them. But here it's like we should do one in every city. Yes. No, my father passed away quite a while ago. My relationship, you'll see there were good stories. He just didn't like me too much when I came back from the States with 20 kilos, and with my little size, it didn't look too good. It was more like Humpty Dumpty, but he called me a bag of potatoes, which is much more cruel. But in a way, maybe it was a good wake-up call. Yes?
Hi. Mireille, I would love to know, since your book has been translated to so many languages and you've been all over the world, what have you learned, well, America, what have you really learned in meeting so many women around the world about the commonalities we have?
It's a very interesting question, actually. The question was, the book had French Women Don't Get Fat, having been translated in 37 languages. What was the reaction from women all over the world? Actually, I didn't get to all the 37 countries, but I went to a good 18. And they're mostly in the developed world. And I must say there are a lot of common points with the US, although you do have the worst rate of overweight, so we need to work on that. But England, Australia, Germany, Holland was alike. But there were 3 countries where the reaction was very different: France, Italy, and China. And for France, women was actually, to me, because I go back and forth every 6 weeks, so I'm in touch, and I know this was happening, but it was very sad for me to see that the book did really well. First of all, I couldn't understand why any publisher wanted to have a French woman publish a book about French women. It didn't make any sense. But what actually it did is that it was a lot of young women who are now, because France were 15 years behind compared to you in terms of going to work and being accomplished businesswomen. And it was kind of a very nostalgic aspect, because these young women are now, they grew up like me, with a mother and grandmother who still cook and take, care of the children and all that. And then they're drawn, they have to work for a living, because it's necessary. And they like the work, but they can't quite, juggle all of it. And they don't want to lose the old way, but they know that you can't go back, and this is the 21st century. So my stories reminded them of their childhood, and there was some very touching moment. In Italy, Italy is Italy. The French women and the Italian women have been competing forever. So they wanted to know, what is so secret about the French? And it was fun. We had great, great fun. And China was, first because I'd never been there, so I didn't know what to expect. But it was mostly young women, very well educated, love anything French. And of course, most of them have never, because they make peanuts by working, some of them 3 jobs, never been to France, so it's what they read and what they see on TV, and they have this myth about the French woman. And so I was lecturing, there were 500 of them, and the first question was, Madame Guiliano, would you mind telling us what designer clothes you're wearing? And I thought, oh, surprise. Well, I said, most French women, we don't wear designer clothes, but I'll tell you what I wear if you need to know. My jacket is, I think that night was Belgium. My sweater was American. My pants and my shoes are Italian. And anything you can't see is French. It's the truth. Yes. Excuse me?
What restaurant do you go to
when you come to Atlanta? When I come to Atlanta, last time, which was about, I came for CNN taping, and I ate at Aria. It was wonderful. But of course, I'd met the chef. I came a few years ago for that wine and food event where we raise money and we eat in people's home. And that's where I met him. He cooked for 25 of us, and it was really fantastic, a great duck dish. So I had to go back. Yes?
French women are said naturally talented and tying scarves. What's
The secret of tying scarf. Now I feel guilty. I wore a necklace tonight. It's either a necklace or a scarf. But actually, I have an online website, And we're doing a video on how, because in the book I have a lot for each season of ways of tying scarves. But we actually, it's not difficult at all, because every woman is unique, and you can't have a 1, 2, 3, 4, because you have to feel it. It's what scarf you have, what you're wearing, how you're feeling, and just, play with it, have fun with it. It's not, you don't have to be a French woman to wear a scarf with great chic. Anyone can learn. Yes? Okay. 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 That's actually, this jacket is actually American. I love it. Yeah, true. So this is a perfect scarf because it's rectangle and it's long. So let's see, if I am at the office, I would wear, during the day, I would wear the scarf like this. If you don't have a necklace, you have the necklace tie, which is very easy, right? You just put it like that, and you can have a low necklace. You can have a high necklace. You can play with a necklace. But then in the evening, friends in New York always tease me because they said, well, did you go home to change? No. I have a lot of scarves like that, and they have 2 different colors or different design on each side. Anyone can do that. You just buy 2 pieces of material, and if you have a friend who can sew, you sew them together. And in the evening, you just open them up like that. I would open them up, and I'd bring a little belt, and it looks like a corsage, like a blouse. So you can have 3 outfits during the day with just a little scarf. And of course, the best way is that you fold it in 2, and you can do that, of course, but don't do what I saw the other day in New York on 5th Avenue. This young girl wearing it like that. No, play with it. You can have it like that. You can have it on the side. If you have a big one, you play with it. It's very easy. Just practice. It's like cooking. The more you cook, the better you are. The more you play with scarf. Thank you so much. I don't know. I could stay all night, yes. Excuse me? One last question.
First, I just want to thank you for your amazing menu plans on your website.
Thank you.
It was wonderful to have cooked lots of wonderful recipes, but to have a better idea of how to put all these together was fabulous. I was wondering if you have any ideas of expanding your website at all, or will that continue to grow, or is that
The website, there are actually 2 websites. The question was, is it going to grow and continue? Actually you all give me, I was at a time in my life where first of all, I never wanted to write a book, and I wanted to work less, and I've never worked so hard in my life the last 3 years, and the minute the first book comes out, I go to reading and people said, when are you going to write the next one? And now what happened is that I did a website, I have my website, mireilleguiliano.com, that you have at the end of the book, so you can write and you can see things and read articles and see recipes. But I also started with a New York company an online program, because so many people want to stay in touch, but they want a lot of recommendations that I can't put on my website. So you have access to that, and there's a community. There are daily menus, there are new recipes, and every month I write little pieces on fashion, on cosmetics, on travel I do, on restaurant where I eat, all kinds of things, fun, and all about pleasures, always pleasures. Thank you.